Coming up on Nuestra Voz today, reporting from a border city. A longtime journalist tells a different kind of story about drug violence, life, and culture in Tijuana.
Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought I would get to do any of this. I think this is a city for people who come for a second chance. And I think I did too, you know?
Sandra Dibble talks about turning her life's work into a new podcast for the San Diego Union-Tribune. How she's taking listeners on a journey through her eyes.
Plus, beating the odds, a restaurant serving very regional Oaxacan cuisine makes a name for itself in the crowded world of food.
I think we were given a choice and we made the conscious decision to say, yes, this is going to be our life mission.
How this mom and pop business made it big, becoming a top food destination in Southern California.
Also, remembering a cultural icon. We'll take a look back at how Mexican-American singer Selena broke barriers and how she's still making an impact almost 27 years after her death.
And revving up the music. See Pitbull entertaining the crowds at a historic NASCAR race at the LA Coliseum. Hi everyone, hola, I'm Paola Hernandez-Jayo.
And I'm Luis Cruz. Thank you for joining us for Nuestra Voz today, presented by the San Diego Union-Tribune and the Los Angeles Times. We're coming to you from the U.S. Mexico border in San Ysidro.
Mexico is facing an ongoing war on truth with violence. So far, claiming the lives of more than a dozen Mexican journalists in 2021 and 2022.
Some of those murders have taken place in Tijuana, a city Sandra Dibble wrote about for the Union-Tribune for almost 3 decades.
Now, as host of her new podcast, Border City, from the Union-Tribune, Sandra chronicles Tijuana's evolution, searches for her own place in it, and tells a larger story about migration, belonging, and identity.
Whenever I catch the news these days, I see stories about the U.S. Mexico border. And so many times, I'm struck by one thought. They don't capture the heartbeat of the place where I've lived and worked for almost 28 years. My name is Sandra Dibble. I'm a journalist who has covered Tijuana since 1994, and I am the creator of a podcast called Border City. Border City podcast came as a result of a lot of discussions. The idea was I was kind of getting close to retirement, and I do remember just saying, hey, you know, why don't you use me in a better way? Why don't you use what I've learned in all this time as I, prepare to leave. And the idea, this was not for me, it was to do a podcast. And it's like, well, me, a podcast? How? And we were toying around with different ideas, and someone said, well, how about you? How about you? We could make the story about you. And I was like, what? A story about me? And I'm, journalists aren't used to being the story. And then I thought, well, I've asked so many people to risk themselves and expose themselves and be vulnerable, so I guess I could do it too, right? The print world is very, very different from the podcast world, obviously on many levels. I had to learn to tape. I had to learn to record. I had to learn to do interviews. I had to learn, well, what's the best recorder? And maybe even harder than just the technical parts is just how do you construct a narrative out of 26 years of your life? It's like, what about my life in 26 years? And why is that of interest to the podcast world? And I think it's been 26 really critical years for the city. Tijuana has really been transformed in 26 years, and yet its essence remains the same, right? It's this amazing city, just wow, with almost like so many crosswinds, migration, you have trade, you have the drug trade, that you have the arts, you have hope and despair. That's just, it's almost biblical sometimes. ended up living and working in Tijuana because I could, basically. I was unencumbered. I was at an age where I could. I was at a stage in my career where I could, and I just, this opportunity came up and I took it. It wasn't really about work. It was about the adventure. It was about working in a bureau in a city called Tijuana that, you have to remember, I'm from Washington, D.C., and what is Tijuana from Washington, D.C.? It's an outpost. And that was just really appealing to me, to get out of the center of things and go to the edges. I started covering Tijuana in 1994, and that was a key year for Mexico in a lot of ways. One of the more significant ones was it was the year that NAFTA was enacted, the North American Free Trade Agreement. It was also the year that a presidential candidate was killed in Tijuana.
A hand with a pistol emerges from the crowd, just a few inches from Colosio. It fires, hitting him in the head.
And I came just like 2 weeks after that. I came in the aftermath. I did not come because of that. I did not come because I thought, wow, there's all this stuff going on with drug trafficking. That was the farthest from my thoughts. I think what's happening right now with the killing of journalists and the threats is a accumulation of things. It's nothing new, right? Back in 2004, I believe, Francisco Ortiz Franco, a Zeta reporter, was killed. I remember Sergio Haro, he was back in Mexicali, he was threatened. So it's nothing new. I think journalists are being killed because there are no consequences, or there have been few consequences for killing them. And people are getting away with it. And I think that's what's happening now, is just a call for justice and a call for protecting journalists, and a demand that people acknowledge and understand the difficult and sometimes dangerous jobs that journalists do. I do know that American journalists have been killed, and it can be dangerous. It's not like you're protected just because you're American. But you are doing a different kind of job, for the most part, than Mexican journalists are. Foreign journalists are not in the nitty-gritty the way Mexican journalists are. We're like flying a little above, and we're coming a little later. We're doing more perspective pieces for the most part, and we are not as much in harm's way. I don't think I have a preferred episode, but I have like vignettes that I just cherish because they're from my own personal life. Like when I was learning danzón, or when I was at learning opera.
On this night, there was opera, and I would be on stage. I hadn't had much formal music education, less than a year of piano classes. When I was a little girl and asked to sing, I'd hide behind the living room curtains.
Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought I would get to do any of this. And Tijuana gave me the opportunity. And I think that's where I am become a Tijuanense in some way. I think this is a city for people who come for a second chance. And I think I did too, And to come here and I think where I really am part of the city is it's a place where people come for second chances. And I think I came for second chances to reinvent myself, fundamentally. And I think a lot of people have. Tijuana is a city with its own story and a million stories. Mine is just one of a million stories in this city. I want people to understand, even if they never come, just how rich the city is.
The Border City podcast is planned for release in April. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Coming up, starting small and beating the odds. How a Oaxacan immigrant family turned authentic hometown recipes into a thriving restaurant. When Nuestra Voz today returns. The San Diego Union-Tribune is San Diego's largest and most experienced news organization, winner of 4 Pulitzer Prizes and 33 regional Emmys. We deliver the news with depth, authority, and over 150 years of local knowledge. Our journalists speak truth to power. The Union-Tribune serves everyone who cares about our community. Support our work. Subscribe today on our website, SanDiegoUnion-Tribune.com. Welcome back to Nuestra Voz today. Southern California is full of stories about Latino immigrants fulfilling their dreams, like this next story about a family-owned Oaxacan restaurant.
Guelaguetza in LA's Koreatown was the 2021 winner of the Gold Award. It's a prize conceived by the late Los Angeles Times restaurant critic Jonathan Gold before his death in 2018.
Guelaguetza's owners spoke to the LA Times about why their family business is more than just a top food destination.
When we moved to the U.S. in '94, we lived in a room. So because of that, we were so close together all the time. That compounded with the fact that when you're from Oaxaca, you kind of have a chip on your shoulder about just people looking down on you in Mexico, so you come here and you have this place that's almost outgrowth of that room, right? That room is now the restaurant. We come and we hang out, we're here all the time together. And then that chip on our shoulder about our Oaxacanness and our identity, because now the restaurant's a hub for that. We have to maintain our unity and our identity as Oaxacans in LA, and that duality of cultures, because now we're putting our own stamp on this.
I think we were giving a choice, and we made the conscious decision to say, yes, this is going to be our life mission. This is going to be our career. This is going to be, and it is. We love where we come from. We love to talk about our culture.
Yeah.
We love to feed people our food. There's nothing better than to change someone's perception of an entire culture, and to be able to do that is such a privilege.
Every time we invite people to the restaurant, it's like inviting them to our living room, to our dining room.
Yeah.
I love having people over at my house for dinner, and I wish I could have all of LA over, but I can have them over here.
It was the way that Jonathan Gold wrote about Guelaguetza. It was the way that he understood, because it wasn't written from a way of a very archaeological way of these people, right? It was from a sense of just authenticity, love, and respect.
Yeah.
And
oneness, where it's equality.
Yeah, equality. It wasn't as these people are doing this, it was I've just experienced this. And I think that opened a lot of people's eyes into what was Mexican food, what is Mexican food, right? And explorations of regions. And then to kind of see again this juxtaposition of a Korean building serving a very regional Mexican food, not just Mexican, right? It's Oaxacan in Koreatown in a very traditional Korean building. What does that mean, right? If you're not from LA, you are just a little bit taken back, but this is LA. This is what Los Angeles is.
The way a culture sees a food is how it's a reflection of how it sees those people. So the fact that he saw our food was a reflection of how he saw us.
So they have something to grasp on. They have to say, I'm so proud of being like this because I have great food, because I have a great language, because I have a great art, because my culture has great music, because I have a beautiful city where I come from. All those things it's an effect that happens.
It's like saying I have worth.
I could never let down my parents. I could never let down Jonathan Gold, and I could never let down Los Angeles, because this is needed. This is needed not only for this city, but it's needed for this country. To know that a small family restaurant serving very regional Mexican food can survive for so long. I think it's hope for the rest of the industry.
And take a look at this. Guelaguetza was recently invited to serve up their delicious mole at the Super Bowl's official tailgate at SoFi Stadium.
Co-owner Paulina Lopez tells us they took great pride in sharing some of their Oaxacan food and traditions at the event. Coming up, remembering the queen of Tejano music, how Selena's legacy continues to influence art, culture, and more. Nuestra Voz Today will be right back. Welcome back to Nuestra Voz Today. We're in San Diego's Barrio Logan neighborhood, standing in front of this mural of the late Tejano music superstar Selena.
The queen of Tex-Mex music would have been 51 next month. Reporter Andrea Lopez Villafaña shows us how the Mexican-American cultural icon is still making an impact.
Selena Quintanilla was larger than life. The late Tejano artist was a Grammy Award-winning musician who broke barriers in a male-dominated genre. Not only that, her music appealed to both English and Spanish-speaking audiences. Selena was at the height of her career in the 90s, when sadly she was murdered. But still, her music resonates with so many fans, and she's become a cultural icon among the Mexican-American community. Nathan Rodriguez, a journalism professor at San Diego State University, teaches a course on Selena. He talks about the importance of Selena among the Mexican-American community.
She is, one of the very few Mexican-American international pop stars that are out there. Her story is almost like a Disney, princess story, the kind of rags to riches. She was a person, they called her, Selena del Barrio. She was with the neighborhood and she was very humble. A lot of Spanish-speaking people use the word amable to describe her. She was a person that people could relate to, and she died tragically. I mean, that in and of itself is like a novela, right? That is the story that I think gets attention. But I think more than that, Selena has become this icon for the Latinx AO community because she is someone who is able to transcend genres, transcend generations. She still, is able to exude this type of music that people still listen to today.
Sony Lopez Chavez, an artist in Barrio Logan, often uses images of Selena in her art.
She's amazing. To me, she is a definition of an icon. She's inspired me throughout my entire life, really. So I've always wanted to paint Selena, and I was approached by a friend to paint a mural of her in North Park, and I thought, well, I would really love to paint it where I live, in Barrio Logan, where I feel like more people are going to feel connected with it. Well, I grew up listening to her music, and I remember when she passed, that was the very first time that I ever saw my parents sad. So that really attracted me to this person. And as I grew up, I started to learn a little bit more about her life, and a lot of things I felt connected with, like being, Mexican American. She was able to balance that in a very respectful and celebrating way, and I also would like to do that with my culture.
Selena's iconic looks inspired Lady Blanca, a drag queen in San Diego.
I've been doing drag for 2 years now, and by women. So I've always wanted to do female impersonations and delve into pretty much the world of women from an outside perspective. Selena means having a creative mind and being able to express it through any medium, as she used to, have her own fashion creatives, her own singing, songwriting. Pretty much she was a whole artist. I really hope that we get to see more and more every year, and I hope that she gets to, inspire the upcoming generations.
I think for a lot of people like myself who are Mexican American, born in the United States, but we have roots in Mexico because our parents are from there. She's somebody who represents being Mexican American, right? She's ni de aquí ni de allá. She's not from here nor from there. She's that kind of person that's in the borderlands, that person that's in between, the person that we can use as an identity. Because when we watch Selena, right, we hear her sing in Spanish, but we also see her speak in English. We see her movie on entertainment television, but we hear her music playing in the pulgas, right, around us. So I think she's that kind of bicultural person that a lot of us can relate to.
March 31st will be the 27th anniversary of Selena's passing. To watch the full video, log on to San Diego Union-Tribune.com. That does it for this edition of Nuestra Voz Today.
Gracias por su sintonía. Thank you for watching.
We leave you with singer Pitbull turning up La Fiesta at NASCAR's season-opening Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum.
If you missed Pitbull performing at last month's event, take a look at this video courtesy of LA Times en Español.